Still, that's not an excuse because they needed to relocate. Hijrah is wajib, right? Immigration is wajib. When your faith is at stake, you must immigrate. So therefore, when you have it next door, but you have other priorities, but I want them to go to Harvard. The brothers just said it. You can still make it to Stanford, to Harvard, whatever you want to make. The priority should not be the prestige. Let's change the mindset. Some people, unfortunately, want all their children to be physicians and doctors, and I understand, that's okay, that's nice. But let us also think of their religious upbringing, because their eternal future depends on this. While their temporary future in this world depends on Harvard and Stanford, but their eternal future depends on this. So please just deliver this message among yourself and peers that this is not something that is secondary, it's not marginal, it's not extra. No, it's essential. Honestly, it's essential. People are struggling in dealing with public schools, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. We've seen the effect. We've lost a generation in many cities. I've spoken and lived in multiple cities, and I saw how we've lost many of our children. And when I mean lost, it's a very sad reality. I don't want to get into the details, but lost as in really lost a lot of children, males and females, because of that. So it's a blessing that you have this treasure, and you have the school that welcomes everyone, and to my understanding, even those who are not financially capable, the school really supports them and allows them to come. And this is something you don't find in many other schools. I know other private schools that, if you don't have the tuition, sorry, we can't help you. So this is a blessing. Really, we need to support as much as we can. I pray from the bottom of my heart for all the administration, Dr. Shafli, the staff, and everyone there to get the best of success, inshallah, in making this better. And I look forward to, inshallah, seeing in the future more of city knowledge all over the United States, inshallah. So for the well-being and success of this great school and all schools that teach the teachings of Ahlul-Beyt alayhi salam, let us recite 3 times a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is Trevor ready yet?
Yes.
Oh, welcome Trevor, please.
Sorry.
No problem.
صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
You can say assalamu alaikum. No problem. Is this microphone working?
Yeah.
The bottom.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Trevor.
So Trevor is here to enter, inshallah, embrace Islam. I want to call Mu'ammal, you're doing the video, but thank you for bringing Trevor. Mu'ammal was the reason that Trevor, inshallah, learned about Islam, and inshallah, Mu'ammal will also get the reward of the Islam of our respected brother. Embracing Islam is a great initiative. It's a new beginning for our brother Trevor. We are very excited for him, inshallah. Inshallah, we look forward to seeing you, inshallah, excel and be one of the soldiers of our beloved fourth Imam, Ajalallah Fajr Sharif. So now let's begin by reciting the testimonies of faith. We'll go in English first, okay? And then we'll do Arabic after?
Yes.
Bismillah. I bear witness
I bear witness
that there is no God
that there is no God
but Allah,
but Allah,
and that
Muhammad
is his servant
is his servant
and final messenger,
and final messenger,
and that Ali and his 11 purified children
and that his 11 purified children
are the divinely appointed, divinely
appointed
successors of the Holy Prophet. Very good. So now, inshallah, we're reciting Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah wa ashhadu anna Aliyan وأبناءه
أبناءه
المعصومين المعصومين
المعصومين
حجج الله.
حجج الله.
أحسن. صلوا على
Sorry to interrupt, but quick announcement: if anyone has seen a phone or found a phone, please can you give it back here to the podium, or you can just give it to one of the members, please. Before we start the program, there's also one announcement for Eid. Many people has been asking about the Eid program, so the Eid program for this year, it's going to be a special Eid, inshallah, will take place at the park, and then we'll announce the directions and the address and all the details for the Eid day, inshallah. So stay tuned, we'll send the announcement, inshallah, in the next couple of days. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، وآلاف التحية والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. والبراءة من أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين. اللهم أنطقني بالهدى وألهمني التقوى ووفقني للتي هي أزكى. اللهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Respected brothers and respected sisters, once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّ لَهُم مِّن بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا. Allah has promised those of you who have faith and those who do righteous deeds that He will surely make them successors in the earth, just as He made those who were before them successors. And He will surely establish for them their religion, which He has approved for them, and that He will surely change their state to security after their fear, while they worship Me, not ascribing any partner to Me. This long holy verse encompasses 4 important prophecies. Prophecy number 1 is that the righteous will rule the entire earth. Prophecy number 2, the religion of Islam will prevail. Prophecy number 3 is that security will replace fear. And prophecy number 4 is that all people will direct their hearts and minds and bodies towards worshiping only one God, Allah glorified and exalted. These 4 prophecies are destined to take place upon the advent of a man from the progeny of the Holy Prophet. May the peace and blessings be upon him and his progeny. This man is known amongst the Muslims as Al-Mahdi, the guided one. All Muslims are unanimous that the coming of the Mahdi is one of the most important fundamentals of faith, and that it is a prophecy that is bound to take place. The difference that Muslims have with respect to Al-Mahdi is with respect to whether he was born or that he will be born. The non-Shias or the Sunni Muslims believe that the Mahdi is from the progeny of the Holy Prophet, but he is someone that will be born towards the end of time, and he will be sent to establish justice on the entire globe. While the Shia 12ers and followers of Ahlul-Beyt believe that Al-Mahdi was born on the 15th of Sha'ban, year 255 after Hijrah, in the city of Samarra in Iraq, and remains to live, continue to be alive, and will reappear when Allah, glorified and exalted, gives him the permission to appear. How do the Shia 12ers substantiate their belief? How can we prove to others that the Imam was born and remains to be alive? There are 4 points that we have to keep in mind and consider collectively to have or to reach that conclusion. I will allude to these 4 points, inshallah, as brief as I can, but I want, inshallah, your undivided attention so that we can put these pieces or 4 points together so that we can arrive at the conclusion. Point number 1 we have to establish is that Al-Mahdi, the guided one, which is the title of our beloved 12th Imam, is from the progeny of the Holy Prophet, from the children of Fatima, from the children of Al-Hussein, and specifically the son of the 11th Imam Al-Hasan Al-Askari alayhi salam. So this is the first point. How do we substantiate that this is indeed the reality? Well, we resort to the ahadith. And we have hundreds of ahadith from both sources that say the same thing. They say that Al-Mahdi is from the children of Rasulullah, he is from the children of Fatima, he is from the children of Hussein, and we have about 146 narrations from both schools that say Al-Mahdi is the son of Al-Hasan Al-Askari. So this gives us enough itmi'nan that Al-Mahdi is indeed from the children of Al-Hasan Al-Askari. In the ahadith that the Ahlul-Beyt and their followers embrace, or the ahadith that the followers of Ahlul-Beyt have adopted from the Ahlul-Beyt alayhim salam, we have a unanimous agreement among all Shia scholars that Al-Mahdi is the 12th of the Imams, and that he is the son of the 11th Imam. So the first point, we can easily establish that Al-Mahdi must be the son of Al-Hasan Al-Askari and the 12th Imam. Is that enough to prove that he was born? No, this is the first point. We have to build on it. The second point is that Al-Hasan Al-Askari had a child during his life. We have to establish that. It's not enough to say, well, the 12th Imam is the son of Al-Hasan Askari. Well, did Al-Hasan Askari have a child? And here we have to go back to whom? To what we call the people of Ansab, and the books of Hadith, and those who are specialized in lineage, in ancestry. And when we go to these books and these scholars, we find the neutral scholars from the Sunni school of thought that say that Al-Hasan Al-Askari, the man who died year 260, they don't believe he's an Imam, they don't believe he's a Ma'soom, but say that specific man had a child, and his child was named Muhammad. So this establishes the second point for us, is that Al-Hasan Al-Askari had a child. Now when you ask them who was that child, they say he was just a normal child and something happened to him and he died or something. We don't care about how they conclude, but we want to establish is that he had a child. That's all that we're looking for in the second point, is that Al-Hasan Al-Askari had a child, and the child was named Muhammad. And we have about nearly, according to our ulama and the survey they have done, nearly 30 scholars from the other school have said that Al-Hasan Al-Askari left this world but with a child. He had a child, a boy, by the name of Muhammad. This is the second point. The third point that we have to establish is that Al-Hasan al-Askari, the 11th Imam, who we Shia believe is the 11th Imam, has been martyred or died year 260. We all believe, and there's no doubt, that Al-Hasan al-Askari died year 260. He's not living today. He died year 260, 5 years after the birth of Muhammad al-Mahdi, his son, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, Ajjalallahu farajahu al-Sharif. This is what point? The third point. The fourth point that we have to establish is that this child, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, remains living after he was born, has not been subject to death. And this is where we come to disagreement with our brothers and sisters from the other school, where they would tell you that, you know what, okay, this child was born, but there's no way this child remained living until today. If he remained until today, that means he's how many years old? 1188. And this is not something that we can digest. How can I fathom a human being living for 1188 years? Therefore, something must have happened to him and he died a long time ago, especially that we can't access him, we can't see him, we don't know where he is, therefore he doesn't exist. Now we have to respond to this by a couple of points. Number one, the fact that we have no proof that he died is enough to say that by default he remains living. If somebody disappears, you can't say that they have died just because of the time. Now the only aspect that they would raise here that may sound appealing to some people is that longevity of the Imam or of a human being to that extent is unusual. And here we have to differentiate between what is unusual and what is impossible. A lot of times people mix between unusual and impossible. They would call something unusual impossible, when in reality it's not impossible logically, it's just unusual. Earlier we were talking with our dear and respected brothers about the concept of a device. 200 years ago, that's too far, 200 years ago. 50 years ago, if you have a grandmother here or a grandfather, may Allah inshallah prolong their lives, and you ask them when they were young, when they were maybe in their 20s, and somebody would approach them and say, you know what, they're working on a device, and this device is basically, it's like the radio, it's made out of metal or plastic. With this device, you can talk to someone and see them live while they are on the other side of the planet. What would their reaction be? Their reaction would be, you're crazy, or this is impossible. Right away they'll say, this is impossible, how could that be? Right? Now, imagine going 200 years back and saying the same thing to someone. They'll say this is only magic, or this is something that is only available to Allah. This is a miraculous reality. There's no such thing. But we find that this thing that was looked at as impossible is not really impossible. It was just unusual for the people during that time. And now today, it is not just usual, it is a fact. A person who lives for 1,000 years or 1,188 years is unusual for humanity, especially in our era. But it is not logically impossible. And to prove that it is possible, all we need to do is cite references, reliable historical references, that this has happened in the past. If you tell me something is impossible and I prove to you that it happened before, then it's no longer impossible. Because if something is logically impossible, it remains logically impossible. It can't be impossible today, but it was possible yesterday. So therefore, if we can mention and cite different incidents or different figures in history that have been reported to live for such a long time, then that would break this impossibility theory, and that would prove that indeed a human being can live for a long time. You all know the verse that we're going to recite first from the Holy Quran with respect to Nuh alayhi salam. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in reference to Nuh? And we know that the Holy Quran is what? Is the book of Allah, the word of Allah, and there's no doubt for us as Muslims that every piece of information in that book is 100% accurate, there's no doubt. Allah says subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فَلَبِثَ فِيهِمْ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا 50 عَامًا. Certainly we sent Nuh to his people, and he remained with them for 1,000 less 50. I said, you know what? How about we go outside of the Quran just to find some supporting evidence? I said, let me go to the Old Testament, the one that's available today, to see if there's, such information that can support this. And I did. I went to the Old Testament, and I found a couple of information in the book of Genesis, where it talks about, who was born, how long they lived, and so on and so forth. So here's what we found in the book of Genesis. It talks about Methuselah. Methuselah is the son of Enoch. Enoch is Idris alayhi salam. Enoch, Idris, his son, Methuselah. The Old Testament says that, and all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. So this person lived for 969 years. Then after that, in the same book of Genesis in the Old Testament, it says, in all the days of Lamech. Lamech was the father of Noah. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. So now 727 years Lamech lived, and then he died. Then this is what I found to be very unique. But before I mention the third one, let me tell you that Nuh spent 950 years proclaiming the message. According to the ahadith, he lived for about 2,500 years. Now let's forget about the 2,500 and just focus on the 950. When you come to the Old Testament to see how long did Nuh live, look what it says. It says that in all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. It is consistent with the same thing that is mentioned in the Holy Quran. So these are just some examples, historical examples from books that are older, the Old Testament. Now you may say, but isn't the Old Testament a book that is tampered? We believe there's tamper and distortion in that book, but not everything in it is false. Whatever in it that is consistent with the Holy Quran cannot be considered false. There's a lot of information there that you find that is consistent with the Holy Quran. Therefore, we can't say every piece of information in the Old Testament is wrong. So here we find that there are people who have lived for a very long time, an extraordinary lifespan, which means that this impossibility or unusual understanding of a long life for a human being should not impede us from accepting that this imam that we believe was born remains to be living. Until we can prove that this imam has left this world, has died, then we would say, okay, he no longer exists. But we can't even accept the fact that he has died, because this is the promised human being that Allah has promised the entire humanity, to allow him to come back, to return and to rise and to establish justice in the entire globe. 318 narrations from both the Shia and the Sunni books of Hadith say that this Mahdi will live for a very long time. So this is a supporting fact from the Ahadith, that don't be don't be amazed or don't be perplexed when you see that the Imam, the 12th Imam, and this Mahdi, the awaited Savior, will be living for such a long time. This prepares us mentally to accept this longevity. Then of course we have to say the following. If the Imam was born, we have no proof that he died. The longevity is very usual with respect to other figures that taken place in history. It's not something that is impossible. Yes, it is unusual for us, but it's not in the case of the other prophets and other figures that were mentioned in history. It is not impossible, it is not illogical, and that he remains to live according to the ahadith, and he will live for a very, very long time. Then where is he now? And how come we cannot access him? This is what we refer to in our Islamic literature as the concept of ghaiba, occultation. meaning that the imam has entered into an occultation. Now, why did he enter into the occultation? And what is the point of an imam who is in an occultation? And how long will it be before he would rise again or get out of the occultation? All these questions, inshallah, I will leave for tomorrow night, inshallah, to discuss, and allow the rest of the time, inshallah, for your questions and answers. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin.
بالمستقبل محاضراتك لازم تكون نص عربي ونص انجليزي.
ان شاء الله.
محاضراتك الان 90% انجليزي.
خدمتكم.
بعضهم ما يتكلمون.
ان شاء الله خدمتكم ان شاء الله. ان شاء الله خدمتكم. اتفضل.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
بس بملاحظة.
تفضلوا.
بس ملاحظتي حقيقة بالنسبة للإمام المهدي عليه السلام هي طول عمر الإمام المهدي عليه السلام is impossible.
Impossible?
يعني.
How is it impossible?
طبعا
impossible. We said unusual.
No, yes, it is not unusual for a man to live more than 1,000 and stays on his 35 age or 13th age.
So is it possible or impossible?
It is impossible.
It's impossible?
It is, yes, not possible.
For a man to live that long?
It's a miracle.
Okay, but how did the previous, again, we have, so the case of Nuh and the case of other...
Yes, I'll give an example.
Mm-hmm.
When the Imam al-Mahdi reached his 30, all his biological cells stopped. That's something that didn't happen for the other prophets, and they aged.
We don't have any proof that
I
his
will tell you.
biological cells have stopped.
I'll tell you proof.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the narration, very important narration and true one, that's one of the companion of Imam, he come to the Imam and he asked, are you the Hujjah? He said, yes. We all Hujjah. He said, are you the Mahdi? He said, yes. We all the Mahdi. Are you the Qa'im of Akhir Zaman? He said, yes, we all. But I cannot be the one who's going to fill it
with justice.
With justice. He said, why? Ya ibn Rasulullah. And that's the key to find out why it is impossible. He said, I am fitting for, he's going to be in his 30. And this is impossible, even for Imam himself, to stop his cells, because they will age, but without the intervention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no man can do that at all.
Ahsan. So here's what I want to clarify. Good point you brought up. When we say possible and impossible, we're talking about logically. And for example, is it impossible to deliver a package from Yemen to Sham in less than a second? It's logically possible, but it's very hard to do without special knowledge and special empowerment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was given to Asif, and Asif was able, bi'idhnillah, because he had some ilm from the kitab, from the book, and he was able to transfer the arsh, the bed of Balqis, from Yemen all the way to Sham in less than a blink of an eye. If we say impossible, impossible means that this could never happen.
Yes.
So we have, I guess we have a misunderstanding on defining what is impossible. There's two types of impossibility, if you just pay attention to this. There is logical impossibility, okay, and there is maybe scientific impossibility, if I want to put it this way. Maybe scientifically you're saying it's impossible, right?
Yes.
No problem. But logically, it is possible if he has the means. So you're saying Allah has given him the means, He has empowered him to remain for such a long time. So in the end, it's still possible, because if it was impossible, it would have never happened, even by the, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can't do the impossible.
No, that's why I'm saying, like, no man can do that by himself. Even if he want to preserve his cells, let's say, no matter how much organization, this is mu'jiz.
So there is a miraculous aspect. We don't disagree.
Yes.
There is a miraculous aspect, because if I right now choose to prolong my life for that time, no matter how healthy I eat.
No, it's not prolonging. Again, it's to preserve in a certain age. Like, it's to stop the cells from aging.
Again, stop the cells from aging is an understanding that you conclude from the riwayah. But is that the actual reality? Did the cells stop? We don't have a clear hadith that said his cells stopped.
All Sunnah and Shia, they will say a man, he will be in his 30s.
He would appear in his 30s. He
Appear.
would look like he's in his 30s, not necessarily that his cells have suspended or stopped at the age of 30. يعني ماكو ملازمة correlation between having the looks of a 30-year-old and having cells suspended when he was 30 about 1,150 years ago. There's يعني ماكو ملازمة بين الأمرين. You can still have someone whose cells are going, but they're going in a different way, such that he was always look young and fresh, and at the age of 40 actually.
Which is the definition that he kept his cells in his 30s. There's no other explanation. Like, if I am 30 at the age of 30.
So you're looking at it from a biological standpoint, there's no other explanation. But what if there's another explanation from a miraculous standpoint? So that, you have the story, which we can't really confirm or not, but just to give you an idea, Zulaykha, after she reached a very old age, according to one of the riwayat, irrespective of how authentic it is, when Allah wanted to allow Yusuf alayhi salam to marry her, what happened to her? He brought her back to young age. That doesn't mean that her cells were suspended when she was 20 or 30. Allah can bring someone back to that young age once again. So perhaps an imam, every time he grows older, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps him
That's a
elevated.
theory. There's no proof for this.
So that's what I'm saying. These are all theories. In the end, how this happens is beyond our capacity. Ahsan. Thank you for the discussion. Ahsan.
I would like to comment on a subject a couple of nights ago. I did not have a chance. One of the, I think, sisters mentioned, why did the Imam Ali alayhi salam said, Fustu wa Rabbul Kaaba? I mean, just a quick analysis of Imam Ali alayhi salam. If you look at his life, even when at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Ali alayhi salam was subjected to prejudice and animosity and hate, even at the time of the Prophet. And there are a lot of narrations where the Prophet has to go to the member or has to make a speech or announcement defending Imam Ali, and even to the fact, for example, when the Al-Ghadir, the Ayat Al-Ghadir was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, we believe that the last ayah, وَسَأَلَ سَائِلٌ بِعَذَابٍ وَاقِعٍ. There was a guy, he came, he said, "Oh Muhammad, you told us to believe you're a prophet, to do this, to do that, and finally now you're putting your cousin in to succeed you. If this were from God, may Allah." And then, according to the narrations, indeed that what happened to that person, and he died. And then you move forward just shortly, where after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and for the 25 years, what Imam Ali alayhi salam had to suffer. And we can see this clearly in the Khutbat Shaqshaqiyya, for example, when he when he described briefly what happened with the first one, the second, and the third one, and what have you. And then moved to his life, the 4.5 years of being the Khalifa and all of the wars. And then all of his companions, those who believed in him, who knew who he was, because not everybody in Imam Ali alayhi salam army believed in him. Some of them, they just believed, okay, he's the Khalifa, he's the commander, and we just obey him. They had no concept of Isma and so forth.
Correct.
Then, and it's narrated, it is a comment, لأنه السؤال was why would Imam Ali عليه السلام said فزت ورب الكعبة. In fact, if you go through this, there is Imam Ali عليه السلام had to say فزت ورب الكعبة. If you look at this, then all of his companions died, and to the point where he was لقد ملأتم قلبي قيحا. He started to say, look, let's fight Muawiyah. So it's too cold. Let's wait. Let's fight Muawiyah. It's too hot. Let's wait.
They gave him a very hard time.
Right. So Imam Ali, at the end, he was succeeded in all of these tests, and he was waiting. He was waiting patiently to the moment he has to be released from this and succeed 100%. And so that's why he said, there's no way just to be sorry and just say, oh my God, he hit my head. No. This is the logical conclusion for this life that that lived Islam 100%. He said,
exactly. It's like going into a test for 4 hours. Those who have been through the MCATs, I'm sure you've been in it maybe, doctors, right? It's a very long test. It's very difficult. So imagine you go through all these challenges, and add to that you're fasting. You happen to take it while you're fasting, and then you end up receiving the best grade. Of course, that's the moment where you feel that really you've made it. So I respect the point that you brought up, and indeed it's a valid point, because Ali alayhi salam indeed has passed all these challenges that no one could have easily passed. Just like Ibrahim, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. أحسنت.
Assalamu
عليكم
alaikum.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
First, I want to congrats Brother Travis. May Allah bless you with his abundance and live a happy and productive life.
MashaAllah. أحسنت.
Sayyid, just a quick comment on your proceedings for Brother Travis Shahada. What was the Shahada during the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and during the Imam, and why is it during our times we have to repeat
the third Shahada?
Exactly.
Ahsant. The Shahada to be, but after the demise of the Holy Prophet, the Muslims were divided into these two groups, and what makes the Shia 12ers unique is that they believe, in addition to the Holy Prophet, Allah has appointed 12 successors to succeed the Holy Prophet. So when you testify this, as if you're saying the Islam that I am embracing is the Islam of the Ahlul-Beyt alayhim salam, not just any Islam, the Islam that continues after the Prophet to be preserved by the 12 Imams. So really that extra, or that third testimony, we're not saying if you don't say it, you don't become a Muslim, but when you say it, you are not just a Muslim, but you are a follower of the Ahlul-Bayt alayhim salam.
So we'll just give the same opportunity to the ladies. If they have any questions, we can pass
We
the
have to
mic
give
them.
double the opportunity to the sisters, not one. And I think we do have a sister back there. A question, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, sister.
Thank you so much for taking the time to answer questions.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask this question since Trevor stepped up and took his shahada. Congratulations to you, brother.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm involved in the IECOC community, Islamic Educational Center in Orange County.
MashaAllah.
And I see a lot of people like Trevor come into the community, obviously, and embrace Islam. My question is, what is the best way for us to support people who are converting into our religion, specifically Shi'ism? One thing I admire about the Sunni communities is they have really sophisticated programs of mentorship and support. How can we implement something similar?
Thank you for bringing that point. In fact, this is one of the most important things that is always, on our minds, is we have plenty of brothers and sisters in all the states. It's a blessing that come to Islam, especially the Islam of the Ahlul-Beyt, and really they need our support. And what I mean by support is, first thing is to allow them to feel welcome and to fit in our communities. Because of our different cultural backgrounds, and let me be transparent, right? Now when you go, for example, to any city and you ask, which center are you speaking at? This is the question I get. I say Jami' Ahlul-Bayt alayhi salam. What are they? They're Shia. No. Iraqi, Irani, Pakistani, Khoja, what are they? We have labels for every center. And every center with that label, there's culture. What I've seen our respected sisters and brothers who have reverted to Shia Islam, and some of them have been a Muslim for like 20, 30 years in my community back in Minneapolis, when you ask them, one of their biggest challenges is this. They say, you know, we come and we don't find just religion, we find religion plus culture. And you guys like impose this culture to the extent that we feel that we don't fit in with you, right? No, you speak, for example, you have your Noha in Arabic, in Urdu, you have different customs, different things, and we feel like, what is this? It's strange to us. And we have to be very accommodating to those people by, look, this is the United States. The culture that unites all of us is the US culture, the good part of the US culture, of course, right? That should be the culture that should be implemented here, of course, within our Islamic values. So number one thing that has to be done is to try to work on mitigating these cultural restrictions that make these people feel that this is not home to them. Especially when it comes to opening our centers to them and opening our hearts to them, of course, before our centers. We have to show them the love, the sympathy, because again, they have left an entire reality to come to this reality. It's like you're from a majority and you come into a minority. It's not an easy challenge. The minority are suffering from the start. You're leaving, being from the majority. You're giving up all the incentive and perks to come to the minority because you find haqq in the minority. You find that this is the true way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a huge sacrifice. And you know how many people, when they do that, the families, they cut them off, the relative, sometimes they could be married and the wife says, nope, we're going to go separate ways. The children, I've seen people where the children said, you're going to be a Muslim, we're going to leave you. So he has to do all these sacrifices just to come to this religion. So they definitely deserve all the love and support. And one thing I usually commend them for is the level of courageousness and audacity. I mean, I don't know if I was in their shoes, I would have taken this. How much fears would be inside of me before taking that initiative. But they come with courage and they have this certainty and the light of Allah has been infused in their hearts such that they have no fear to come and announce that they have now become a Muslim, especially a Muslim 12er. So indeed, collectively as Shia organizations, I think we still are in our baby steps, but we definitely need to do more. I respect the importance of mentorship. Mentorship is important because this is a huge shift. They're going to need training. Until today, we don't have a lot of training when it comes to how to help them be accustomed to this new lifestyle. The salah, wudu. We do have videos here and there, books, booklets, but I think it needs more than that. It needs someone to friend them, to support them, to give them all the support they need so that they can adapt and so they can transition into this community in a better way. Of course, this cannot be done just by individual basis. It needs like a project. And most importantly, it needs a lot of support, even on a financial level, so that all these projects can come to reality and materialize.
Right, now that's our responsibility as a community. What would you say would be their responsibility? What can we advise them in terms of expanding their knowledge, committing to the community and whatnot?
Ahsanti, that's very important. So, as Muslims, we continuously grow and learn. We come to these centers. One of the reasons why we come is also to continuously learn. Islam has a very important, unique perspective on learning. It's not something you get a degree and 4 years later you're done. It says, اطلبوا العلم من المهدي إلى اللحد, from the cradle to the grave, which means ilm is an ongoing process that's continuous. So my advice to my dear brother Trevor and the rest of the brothers and sisters of Embrace Islam is that make sure to keep this as a fundamental task, if not daily, weekly. You have to continuously read and learn. You start with the basics, you master the basics, you go and you always consult your local alim, the scholars. There's so much resources out here, mashallah, great respected ulama in LA and other centers here. And inshallah, they would help, inshallah, in guiding you through what you need to do next. And don't ever be embarrassed to ask. We even have hotlines or phone numbers, such as Imam, for example, im-us.org. They have a line that you can call them. They have a website. They have all kinds of resources. And connecting with community friends, especially people your age, would definitely be a great resource, inshallah, for them. Yes, brother, you had a question?
I just have a question. How would you describe the Shia Dawah scene over here in America? And where do you think like we can improve overall?
The da'wah.
Yeah.
So this is a good point. A lot of times I receive this question, how come we Shia don't have da'wah? Da'wah is an invitation to Islam, inviting people to Islam. Da'wah is a Sunni word, it's an Islamic word, but Sunnis are known for da'wah more than us. Sunni would go to the streets and they would do da'wah. They go in, anywhere you'll find them doing da'wah. So I always say, you Shia don't do da'wah. We have to look at the historical background for this. Shia have been prosecuted for centuries. So they have been hiding behind the bush to preserve their faith in what they have. So it's like, let's preserve what we have. We still haven't reached the point where we have the capacity to go beyond to the other. That has left us in the mindset that da'wah is not a priority. But that needs to change, because alhamdulillah, now we're in the US, we have our freedom, we can definitely do da'wah. But how do we do da'wah? There has to be a method. We don't want to do it in the same way that some other schools do it, where actually it can create the wrong effect. We want to make sure that we have people who are specialized, people who have the knowledge to put Islam in the most concise language in a brochure, and to train people to speak briefly about Islam, and to be in the right place, and to start activities and programs to invite people to Islam in such a way that is effective. It's not about going and reading them a script. It's not about going and say, you know what, you should come to Islam. There has to be marketing. We lack marketing skills, okay? And I think new generation who excel in marketing can serve Islam through their marketing skills by telling us how we can market our ideas, how we can market our beliefs to this Western culture. And I'll be very clear and honest that the Western culture, or let's say at least here the US citizens, they're much more easier to attract to Islam than others. If you were to go try to bring a non-Muslim, a non-Shia brother, for example, a Sunni, to Shia Islam, it is much, much more harder than to bring a Masihi, a Christian, a Jew, from somebody from the other faith to the religion of Islam. So we do have that, but we just have to do it right. We don't want to just do it, but we want to learn how to do it right and implement it, inshallah. I do see some work, but it's still, again, it's still in the infant stage, and it requires more and more. And really the hope is in this generation, your generation, really. Because this generation understands this country and the mindset and the people the best. Maybe our fathers and forefathers, they have their limitations. Right? The basic limitation they may have is language, right? Fluency. They may have the how to reach the other mind, how to decode the mind of the other person and speak to them in their language, not in your language. So all these together are obstacles, but can be, inshallah, mitigated by the collective efforts, inshallah, and by the help, of course, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first and foremost. Sorry, back to the sisters we interrupted. Maybe you had other questions. If you'd like to ask, please proceed. Menti you have? Okay, if you have, inshallah, you can start, Abu Shah. Okay, so let me just use the other microphone. Yes.
Okay, so this is regarding the lecture from a few days ago. After the death of a Prophet ﷺ, declared Imam Ali alayhi salam as his Khalifa, and the people voted Abu Bakr as a Khalifa. How did this develop into 72 sects?
The people did not vote Abu Bakr as a Khalifa. We have to be very careful on how we word these. The people did not vote him as a Khalifa. There was no voting to start with. Few people came without anyone knowing, snuck into the Saqifa of Bani Sa'ada, had a very, very heated discussion. It ended with Umar clapping on the hand of Abu Bakr and saying, "You're the Khalifa." Now he became a Khalifa, he came with power, and they came with this vocal and loud voice and says, "You need to give bay'ah." usually the mass majority of people do what? They succumb to the loud voice. If you have 300 people here, if 3 of them stand and scream and show power and aggression, the rest will remain quiet. But don't look at the number. So the Muslims, when they saw that, okay, this is a reality, what can we do? I'll just give you an example, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but think of when ISIS entered Mosul. Few people were able to take the entire state and no one could say anything. Same thing here. This is this overthrowing of power that happened after Rasulullah, which we call inqilab in Arabic, is not something easy. It wasn't voting, there's no election. Muslims were shocked. Malik ibn Nuwayra woke up, received a message from Khalifa through his messenger Khalid ibn al-Walid that, look, you need to give us the zakah. He says, who are you? He says, Abu Bakr is the new Khalifa. He says, but Ali ibn Abi Talib, we gave him allegiance on Ghadir. When did this happen? He says, oh, so you don't want to give zakah? You're a kafir. Therefore, they killed him and they've done what they have done to Malik. So really, what happened is not voting. But you said, how did it turn into 72 sects? Well, here's what happens. Whenever people deviate from the right path, they will not remain on, even the falsehood belief or the falsehood understanding of Islam or the wrong understanding is not going to stay the same. That will branch out and give birth to new sects. So for example, when the people that did not accept Ali as an imam continued, they themselves differed among them. And you have Khawarij that were born from them. You have Mu'tazila that were born. Later on you have Ash'ari that were born. Later on you have Ahlul Hadith. Later on, and then it started to branch out until you have, I don't know if it's 72 yet, but there are many ideological schools of thought when it comes to Islam.
Thank you. The second question is there a khums that is due on inheritance from a deceased parent? Can you please reply in Arabic? Jazakallah.
لا خمس في الإرث. لا يجب الخمس في الإرث. الإرث المحتسب يعني الإرث من الأب، الله يحفظ آبائكم وأمهاتكم جميعا، القريب الرحم، لا يجب دفع الخمس. فأنت إذا مثلا حصلت على إرث أو حصلتي على إرث من الأب، من الأم، من طرف آخر قريب، فهذا لا يجب فيه الخمس. There's no khums in inheritance that is expected from a close relative. وكذلك المهر. Mahr al-mar'a. So if a husband gives his wife mahr, let's say he gives her whatever he gives her, that mahr, as long as it's, with her, of course, it's her mahr, she has no khums on it as well.
So this is a related question. Are we obligated to pay khums on a loaned money?
When you take money, if you take it as a loan, there's no khums on it until you fully own it. So if I took $100 from you, that $100, as long as it's sitting with me and I haven't paid you back, it's not my money, I'm just borrowing it. Therefore, there's no khums on it. But if I bought, for example, land with it that I didn't use, just extra land, and then I paid you back, that land is now due for khums. Yes? Yeah, so for example, for example, if I borrowed $1,000 from Brother Ahmed, and when I took it from him, I went and I bought land. There's no way, of course, in LA you find land for $1,000. It's just hypothetical, right? But let's say I was in 1920s and there was a land for $1,000.
So you borrowed $2 million.
$2 million. I don't want to overwhelm him. He still has a family. But okay, I'll take $2 million from Ahmed and buy a land here, inshallah. So when I bought this land, I'm not living on it. I'm not, using it as an expense. It's just extra land. What I do is I start paying him back. Every year, whatever I paid him, so I paid him, for example, 100,000 this year back, that 100,000 is now due for khums. Up to 100,000 of that land is due for khums. If I pay him the entire amount, then that land, which is 2 million, is now khumsable. The khums has to be paid out.
Can you repeat that in Arabic? Say it.
Yeah.
حتى البيت إذا بيت دفعته كله وأنا قاعد أجيب دفعته.
لا يجب عليه الخمس. أي شيء للمؤونة، يعني anything an expense. المؤونة يعني expense. احنا مثالنا كان أرض اشتريتها ليست للسكن، لا هي شيء زيادة خير استثمار. هذا أي شيء هو خارج عن الحاجة فيه الخمس. بس أنا ما دفعت الخمس في البداية، ليش؟ لأن كنت مقترض المبلغ، ما كان إلي. بس لما سددت المبلغ صارت الأرض إلي، فلا بد أن شو أسوي؟ أخمسها لأنها فائضة عن المؤونة.
هو الأرض حتى يبنى عليها بيت.
هذا
I love him على المؤمن.
اي لا لا هو ذا ابن بيت ذاك بحث اخر طبعا، هم عند السيد بها تفصيل انه اذا كان ما عنده طريقه ابن بيت الا بشكل تدريجي، فهو ما يعني الارض تكون معفيه من الخمس متى؟ في السنه الاولى، سنه السكنه يكون، اما انه من البدايه اشترى الارض وانتظر.
ادري هو اخذ هسه مليونين اشترى ارض.
نعم.
بعدين من دكتور صادق اخذ مليونين بنى البيت.
دكتور صادق لا يعني بلكي 3 مليونين.
ورا 15 سنه صار عنده بيت.
نعم.
هم يجي يدفع عليه خمس؟
لا البيت
خلينا
احسن. لكن في البدايه المقدمات السيد يقول لك صورتين، سيد سيستاني يقول مره هذا ما ممكن يعيش في بيت مثل العالم الا بهاي الطريقه، يعني يصير في مشقه ويلام و هنا راح يعفى من الخمس الى ان يكون البيت. بس يقول لا مره هو ممكن مثلا بطريقه اخرى، يعني شو مرات واحد يريد بتعبيرنا الكماليات، يعني ممكن يشتري بيت مثلا مناسب له ولاسرته بمبلغ اقل من هذا وجاهز، يقول لا انا ابني بيت واصممه واسوي ديزاين واسوي كذا، فهذا ما راح يكون للمؤونه، راح يكون شيء فيه نوع من
الشأنية وين تصير بالخصوص؟
هو الشأنية هو مو بالضرورة تكون الا بالبناء.
لا كل شيء.
قد تكون وقد لا تكون، احنا كلامنا اذا كانت الشأنية اقتضت ان لابد يكون عنده بيت مبني بهذا الشكل، نعم ياتي هذا الفرق. اما افترض لا هذا شأنيته تقتضي يشتري تاون هوم مثلا، بس هو يقول لا اشتري قصر ببيفرلي هيلز، فهذا نعم.
سيد السؤال،
نعم.
اذا اشترى هذا الشخص البيت اليوم ب 15 سنه حيصير شوي اكثر الخمس على المشتري لو على الوقت يعني الماركت.
البيت اشتراه حتى يسكن به؟
as in well living بحاجة I know that but it's as an investment.
Investment. Any money that you wish to invest, you have to pay its khums before you begin the investment. So if you want to invest 100
just the scenario you were saying with Ahmed, you're borrowing $1 million like most people
Sure.
that سووا investment هياخذون loan عليه.
Hey, from when you take the million until you, so whatever you pay from that million as you go will be due for khums. مثلا هاي السنة دفعت only 200 you paid back from that million. That 200 will be due for khums. So as you go you're going to be paying khums every year.
It's not the price يعني الوقت اشتريت السعر اللي اشتريته مو سعر الماركت ماشي قصدك.
أحسنت، لا المبلغ اللي أنت اقترضته هو هذا اللي عليه الخمس يكون، أما أنه الأرض راح يصعد قيمتها no because هنا الحساب راح يكون على نفس المبلغ اللي أنت اقترضت، أنت الآن تسدد وكل ما سددت every time you pay back you're taking the khums out of the amount that you have paid back until up until that end of the year that you are paying your khums.
يعني say أنت عندك that million, it will go with smaller numbers, 100,000. أول سنة more realistically تدفع 10,000 خمسها هاي 10.
أحسن 2,000 is what you're going to be due
Correct.
at the end of that year.
السنة الجاية حتدفع another 10, that
Only two then.
Only on the second 10,000.
On the second 10 exactly.
Not on the first
أحسن exactly, and then until you pay it all off, then it becomes your land. هسه بعدين you decide to sell it and it profits. The profit will be your new ربح. If it stays for a year, you pay its khums. If it doesn't, you spend it on your needs, then there's no khums on the profit. تفضل أبو إن شاء الله.
What is the hukum for a woman reciting Quran in public?
So reciting Quran in public, reciting dua in public, reciting Nawha, Luqmiya, whatever it may be in public, ulama say, and I'm talking about mainstream ulama like His Eminence Sayyid Sistani, as long as her voice is commonly, urfan, and this varies from one person to the other, commonly not considered a source of fitna. Yani, for example, if her voice, usually when it's heard by people, it doesn't provoke their lustful desires, they hear it like they're hearing any other voice, there's no problem in it. But if that voice has that effect, that negative effect, now who determines this? Urf, common view, and this can vary from culture to culture. You go to Najaf in Iraq, for example, and you have a gathering that has men, there's no way that this can pass easily where you have a sister coming and reciting in front of men. Culturally frowned upon, there's a lot of limitations. But maybe, who knows, in other countries, maybe in the US, other places, it might be to certain communities, okay, but it's not something that you can easily say this voice is fine and this voice is not. I mean, it's really something that is subjective between to people, but it's based on common view. Yani, commonly, would this voice usually cause that negative effect or not? If commonly it does, then she can't recite it in public. If it commonly doesn't, it's like anybody else reciting, then it is no problem in it.
What do you think?
Wallahi, honestly, it varies. And
سيدنا خاطر الله يسلمك تقعد بالتلفزيون المنار ممكن نسوان يقرأن الأخبار ويسوون
صح
يعني هذا شنو بعد اكو بي كامل ومو كامل ومدري شو اسمه له
القراءة غير قراءة الأخبار. هو أن تتحدث هكذا مثلا حصل هذا الأمر في هذا البلد، هذا الكلام يختلف عن التنغيم. كلام عن القراءة التنغيمية، يعني مثلا تجود وتظهر محاسن صوتها، إظهار المحاسن يعني إظهار النغمات. قد يكون هذا بالنسبة لبعض الأخوات مثلا يكون صوتها فيه إثارة ولا يخضعن بالقول فيطمع الذي في قلبه مرض. نعم، من هذا الباب يعني.
بعض اللطميات مثل الغنى صاير.
خب هذا حتى الرجال يقروها. نعم أحسنت. خب هذا بحث آخر. أحسنت.
زين الرجل لما يقرأ لطمية وفي فتن أما عليه إشكال أو ما عليه؟
لا، أم الرجل شوف نكون نميز هنا. الرجل في الغالب صوته ليس فيها هذه الخطورة أنه يوجب الإثارة النوعية. قد يثير هنا وهناك، بس عادة صوته غير يعني لا يسبب هذه الحالة مثلا الإثارة النوعية، وبالتالي لا يؤثر على الرجل، لا يكون هو مهدد.
الرجل على المرأة ما يأثر عليها؟
النساء
لا خب هاي المسألة هم يعني شلون ما يقولون subjective، يعني نسبية، ولكن نسبيتها أقل بكثير من قضية يعني المرأة فاتنة للرجال أكثر مما الرجل فاتن للنساء. ذلك لأن المرأة بطبيعتها هي تمثل الجمال والأنوثة وما إلى ذلك، أما الرجل فليس كذلك، ليس بهذا المستوى. يتحول بعد والله المعين. نعم.
يقال إن أسماء الله الحسنى هي 85 اسم من القرآن وليس 100، وكيف اسم الله هو الضار؟
هو الضار؟ الضار، أحسن، جميل. طبعا أسماء الله تبارك وتعالى اختلف العلماء، هل هي محصورة برقم؟ هل هي مفتوحة؟ مثلا جوشن بألف اسم تقريبا، ألف، سنة 99 وين ألف وين؟ فبالتالي هاي القضية مفتوحة. بعض العلماء قال أي اسم ثبت بآية أو برواية ناخذ به، أما اسم طلعته أنا من عندي طلعته أنت من عندك لله، هذا يقولون ما ناخذ به. احنا الله كيف يسمي نفسه؟ المعصوم يعرف، النبي يعرف، الله هو اللي يعرف أكيد. فقالوا نلتزم بما جاءنا بالنصوص عن أسماء الله. أما الضار والنافع، طبعا النافع والضار. الضار بمعنى الذي لا يضر في الوجود شيء إلا بإذنه، يعني ما لم يسمح الله لأي شيء أن يكون أو يتحقق لا يكون. طبعا الضرر احنا ماخذين معناه السلبي أنه الضرر، لا، الضار بمعنى إيصال النقص مثلا وإيصال العجز مثلا لمخلوق من المخلوقات. يعني الله إذا أراد مثلا أن يدخل الضر على عبد، أن يعاقب عبده، وهذا الضر، إدخال الأذى أو الضرر، لكن هذا لا يعني أنه انتقام أو يعني عفوا أنه ظلم من الله تبارك وتعالى. هذا يعني أن المقابل كان مستحقا لهذا الضر أو هذا الضرر الذي نزل به، وبالتالي لا ضار ولا نافع إلا بإذنه تبارك وتعالى.
سيدنا أعتقد جاوبت هذا السؤال الثاني اليوم، بس هو السؤال باللغة العربية. عند وفاة الرسول انقسام طوائف إلى 72.
نعم، قلنا أن الطوائف كيف
سؤال من أين أتت هذه الطوائف؟
من أين جاءت هذه الطوائف؟ بعد شهادة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم ووفاته اختلف المسلمون. هذا الاختلاف لم يقف عند حد، يعني هذا الاختلاف لم يقف عند حد. عندما اختلف المسلمون صارت الفريق المعسكر المقابل لأمير المؤمنين هذا مع الزمان أيضا تشقق، برز منه الخوارج، والخوارج انقسموا إلى أقسام، وبرز منهم المعتزلة، وبرز بعد ذلك من المعتزلة الأشاعرة. يعني هو كل فرقة تولد فرق. شايفين احنا مثلا في بعض المراكز في بعض المدن تبدي مركز وبعد يصير 20 مركز. ليش؟ لكثرة المصلين؟ لا، لانه انا ما انا قياده وانت قياده، اختلفنا فابو شاب يسوي مكان وانا اسوي مكان وهكذا. وبعدين انت اللي وياك في المكان مالتك اختلفوا وياك، خلينا نطلع وسوهم كل واحد مكان، وصلنا ما شاء الله 50 مكان و30 يصلون. فبالتالي هذا الواقع اللي صار بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه واله.
السلام عليكم. ما هي مدة التوبة عند ارتكاب العمل الذي يغض الله عليه؟ هل صحيح المدة هي يغض الله عليه؟ هل هي المدة 7 ساعات؟
اي ورد في الروايه ان الله يمهل العبد 7 ساعات، ولكن 7 ساعات مو يعني 60 دقيقه، هاي 60 دقيقه حديثه. الساعه في اللغه هو البرهه من الزمن، وقد تكون الساعه ربع ساعه وقد تعبيرنا وقد تكون ساعتين، النتيجه انه هي برهه من الزمن. هسه هاي 7 ساعات يعني 7 برهات من الزمن، ايش قد مثلا تساوي؟ لا نعلم، لكن النتيجه ان الانسان متى ما اراد التوبه حتى بعد هاي 7 ساعات فان الله يقبل التوبه من عباده. التائب من اكثر حديث حقيقه يبعث الامل في قلب الانسان مروي عن الامام باقر، يقول التائب من الذنب كمن لا ذنب له. شايف هيك انت رحمه؟ كمن لا ذنب له. فالانسان لا يعني يقيد نفسه، متى ما شعر بانه ارتكب المعصيه واراد التوبه فليعاجل ويستعجل ويرجع الى الله، فسيجد الله توابا رحيما. السلام.
السؤال: هل سيظهر الامام المهدي بمفرده ام هناك اشخاص معه؟
خب المعروف في تراثنا الروائي أن الإمام سلام الله عليه هو بالنتيجة يخرج لوحده كشخص، لكن أيضا معه ينزل عيسى من السماء بإذن من الله لكي يؤيد حركة الإمام ويصلي خلفه. وطبعا قد تخرج بعض الشخصيات التي لم نكن نعرفها، مثلا بعض الأولياء الذين يؤنسونه في غيبته. أكو عندنا رواية أن هنالك 30 وما ب30 من وحشة، 30 من المؤمنين لا نعلم هل هم من زمن واحد هم من أزمنة متعددة، لا نعلم. هؤلاء ممكن أيضا يخرجون معه، والخضر سلام الله عليه بحسب المعروف عند المسلمين هذا أيضا سيكون له دور، لا نعلم ما هو الدور، لكن النتيجة أنه الظهور الرئيسي هو للإمام سلام الله عليه. و313 من الأنصار دول يكونون هل هم كلهم من زمن واحد من أزمنة متعددة؟ هذا هم فيه كلام. أحسنتم. الرجعة قال العلماء أن الرجعة تكون بعد ظهور الإمام، وقالوا أن الرجعة تبدأ يعني قرابة نهاية حياة الإمام، وتبدأ بالحسين بن علي. قالوا أنه يظهر لكي يكفن ويغسل ويدفن ولده الإمام الحجة عليه السلام، ويكون هو الإمام من بعده ويحكم فترة طويلة حتى تنزل جبهته على عينيه، يعني يكون طاعنا في السن، ومن بعده ينزل يعني يظهر أمير المؤمنين. وهذا كله روايات يسمى رواية الرجعة. رواية الرجعة فيها نقاش بين العلماء، لكنها روايات كثيرة جدا يصعب التشكيك فيها على نحو الإجمال، لكن موجودة في تراثنا الروائي.
So I got 2 more questions and then we conclude the night. So are women encouraged to avoid working in the healthcare field in order to avoid touch on males?
Okay, good. So healthcare is a very humane job. And really may Allah bless our brothers and sisters, especially when the pandemic hit. We really appreciated how much we needed them. They saved so many lives, right? In fact, His Eminence Sistani Iraq, what did he call them? Call them شهداء كذا هيش البدلة البيضاء. ها؟ Angels of Mercy، ملائكة الرحمة. أحسنت. فبالفعل لهم دور عظيم، لكن هذا لا يمنع أو لا يعني أننا نغفل الجانب الشرعي. الجانب الشرعي ماذا؟ المرأة بسهولة أساسا أنت في المجال الطبي تستطيع أن تلبس القفازات هم حفاظا، وهم أنت إذا لبست ما عليك إشكال. يعني المرأة إذا لبست القفازات ولمست المريض لا إشكال إذا راعت الأدب والحشمة والحجاب الكامل، هذا لا ضير فيه. هسه إذا هي مخيرة إنه أكو الحمد لله أكو من بهم الكفاية، نفترض ما عندنا بانديميك وعندنا الآن المستشفيات متروسة مثلا نيرسات وأطباء، هل هو هذه المهنة المفضلة لها؟ أكيد قد توجد مهن أخرى مثلا كمهنة التدريس، خاصة إذا كانت في مدارس للتنشئة والتربية، وما أحوجنا إلى مدرسين ومدرسات من المؤمنين يعملون في المدارس حتى على الأقل يخففوا من وطأة هذا الواقع السيء البائس الذي ابتليت به هذه البلاد وغيرها.
السؤال الأخير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. ما هو الدليل على عصمة الأئمة الاثنا عشرية؟ وكيف يرد على الناس الذين يقولون أن الأئمة هم عباد صالحين فقط وليسوا معصومين؟ فقط الرسول محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم هو لديه العصمة المطلقة.
نعم، هذا خذ بها أكيد آيات كثيرة وروايات يستدل بها. طبعا عصمة الأئمة عليهم السلام مرجعها أو الملاك فيها هو نفس ملاك عصمة الرسول. شلون يعني نفس ملاك عصمة الرسول؟ الرسول لماذا لابد أن يكون معصوم؟ ولقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. الرسول هو الناطق الرسمي باسم الشريعة الكاملة، باسم السماء. فهل يمكن أن الله تبارك وتعالى يرسل عبدا يمثله من كل الجهات ويريد الناس أن يطبقوا الشريعة بحذافيرها، وهذا الذي أرسله هو معرض للخطأ؟ يعني إلهي ما لقيت غيره مثلا شوية أحسن؟ لابد الله تبارك وتعالى يبعث رسلا وأنبياء مأمونون من الزلل والخطأ، ولا كيف نثق بهم ونثق بتعاليمهم ونتبعهم؟ احنا الآن نتبع النبي ونقول سنة النبي حجة. هل نقول مثلا نجي للنبي يقول له يا رسول الله أنت هسه سويت قضية، يقول إيه؟ نقول له هاي سويتها أنت، يعني هذه وحي لو هاي أنت جاي تسوي شغلات من يمك. خلينا نفترض قال لا هاي وحي، إيش مدري يقول يجوز مشتبه. قال إيه هاي وحي، يقول يجوز مشتبه. فلا بد نثبت العصمة حتى نقول كل ما سألناه فهو أكيد يجاوب على الشكل الصحيح. بعد شهادة ورحيل النبي صلى الله عليه وآله الذي عليه الشيعة أن القائم مقامه مو خليفة عادي يدير مثلا مجموعة من الناس وحاكم عسكري، لا، يقوم مقامه في كل أدواره باستثناء النبوة. يحفظ القرآن ويفسر القرآن ويطبق الشريعة ويمثله من كل الجهات. أنت مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي، فقط النبوة. فإذا هذا الملاك يستدعي شنو؟ نفس الخصائص. مثل واحد الآن عنده طبيب في المستشفى، ما هي المؤهلات؟ لابد يكون طبيب. زين هذا الطبيب الآن راد يستقيل أو يتقاعد، لازم يجيبون طبيب آخر بمكانه. يقدرون يجيبون واحد مؤهلاته مثلا بس ممرض، يقول يلا النتيجة راح الطبيب نجيب ممرض. إذا ما يصير لازم المؤهلات هي حتى يبقى الجاب أو المكانة هذه أو هذا المكان يشغله من هو أهل. فنفس القضية، المعصوم هو الذي يقوم مقام النبي أو المعصوم السابق. طبعا أدلة أحاديث روايات كثيرة في هذا المقام لا يسع المجال للحديث عنها في هذه العجالة. السلام عليكم.
شكرا لك سيدنا.
ولكم جزاكم الله خير الجزاء، وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة إلى أمواتكم مع